So come back. We were learning. So the rapid revision program lo bhanga we were learning how the questions can be framed and how we have to answer and all right. So there are totally 8 chapters. Out of 8 chapters, we did complete 2 chapters. Like I've been instructing you people go through your class notes and other stuff like no. So whatever the doubts which you carry, whatever the stuff we have learned, you can pose me the questions. So in this session, we'll start with Vedic Civilization. So the first chapter, prehistoric cultures, followed by Indus Valley Civilization. The third chapter, Vedic Civilization. The span of Vedic Civilization, 1500 BC to 600 BC. So these are the topics to be focused, extremely, focused areas you call them. The first topic, Vedic literature, followed by classification. Manaku classification with the questions will die. So what was the criteria based on which the entire civilization got classified kind of, right? So Vedic literature followed by classification of the civilization, and the third and last component, general conditions. When it comes to Vedic literature, everyone knows we have the entire literature which was produced by Aryans, broadly divided into 2 phases or 2 categories. What were they? Shruti and Smriti, right? When it comes to classification, can anyone, what was the criteria based on which entire civilization broadly divided into 2 phases? That is early Vedic period, otherwise called as Rig Vedic period, and later Vedic period. Can anyone? అంటే ఏ ప్రాతిపదిక మీద వైదిక నాగరికతను 2 భాగాలుగా విభజించారు? పాస్టరల్ ఎకానమీ అండ్ అగ్రైన్ ఎకానమీ. ఫైన్. ఎనీ అదర్? కొంచెం గట్టిగా. ఇన్వెన్షన్ ఆఫ్ ఐరన్ వేర్? ఇన్ లేటర్ వేదిక్ పీరియడ్. చలో ఇంకా. So when it comes to classification annappudu, based on venue, the entire civilization broadly divided into 2 categories or 2 phases. Venue, location you call. What is the location of Aryans, early Vedic Aryans? Sapta Sindhu region. Sapta Sindhu region or northwestern India. What is the location of later Vedic Aryans? Gangetic Basin. That's it. Yes, we have so many differences between early Vedic Aryans and later Vedic Aryans, Rig Vedic Aryans, later Vedic Aryans. The criteria enti. What is the criteria annappudu? Yes, it was venue or location. And followed by general conditions. In general conditions lo bhanga, we are going to have the reviews. That is how early Vedic economy and what kind of changes which took place in later Vedic economy, how early Vedic social institutions, what kind of changes which took place in social institutions of later Vedic period, apply the same towards religion, followed by polity. That's it. Chala easy. అంటే ఈ ఏరియాస్ నుంచి మనకు క్వశ్చన్స్ వచ్చాయి. We must be good at those areas, and obviously we have to go through previous year question papers. Now start with keywords. Keywords. To begin with Aryans. అది కీవర్డ్ సార్? అవునండి, ఆర్యన్స్. వేదిక్ లిటరేచర్, సప్త సింధు మనం ఇందాక రెఫర్ చేశాం, నార్త్ వెస్టర్న్ ఇండియా, సప్త సింధు రీజియన్. ద వెన్యూ ఆఫ్ ఎర్లీ వేదిక్ ఆర్యన్స్, సప్త సింధు రీజియన్. రివర్ ఇండస్ and her 5 tributaries and river Saraswati. Sapta Sindhu. Sapta, 7. Sapta Sindhu region or northwestern India. Another keyword when you go through syllabus, that is pastoral economy. Pastoral economy followed by Ias. Can anyone what is under Ias? Metal. Ias. Yava. ఆయస్ కానివ్వండి, సప్త సింధు రీజియన్ కానివ్వండి, యవ, చాతుర్వర్ణ సిస్టమ్, చతురాష్టమ ధర్మ, భక్తి, ఇవన్నీ కూడా సంస్కృత టర్మ్స్. ఆయస్, సప్త సింధు, యవ, చాతుర్వర్ణ వ్యవస్థ, చాతుర్వర్ణ సిస్టమ్, చతురాష్టమ ధర్మ, otherwise called as purusharthas, followed by bhakti. And can anyone, what is the PGW stands for? Very good. Painted grey ware. The utensils painted with grey color. Painted grey ware antam. Right. These are the PGW sites we found in, especially in Vedic Civilization. PGW sites antam. Right. But మనకు maximum PGW sites మనకు గంగా యమున పరివాహక ప్రాంతాల్లో లభించాయి. Utensils like jars కానివ్వండి, pots కానివ్వండి, right? So the utensils were painted with grey color. Right? So painted grey ware culture. Historians prefer to call Vedic civilization, historians prefer to call the civilization which flourished between 1500 BC to 600 BC as Vedic civilization. Because Vedas are the only sources of our knowledge to know about Aryans. When it comes to archaeologists prefer to call this particular, say, civilization which flourished between 1500 BC to 600 BC as PGW. Because they have their own criteria. You're quite aware of, take an example of Indus Valley. Right? Archaeologists prefer to call Indus Valley civilization as Harappan civilization because Harappa was the earliest site to be discovered. So they have the tradition naming the cultures, naming the sites. Harappa was the earliest site to be discovered in 1921. They prefer to call it as type site. Now, Aryans exclusively used PGW. So PGW culture we call it. Painted grey ware culture. Manaku chala exams lo ante when you go through previous question papers you come across which one of the following was not the sites of PGW. So be good at it. I'm not instructing so far like we found 500 plus PGW sites throughout a Gangetic basin. Even Manaku, Haryana, Delhi, ee parisara prantala. Extremely important. Sites మీరు ప్రతి సైట్ని గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. సిగ్నిఫికెన్స్ ఏంటి, ఆ సైట్ యొక్క సిగ్నిఫికెన్స్ ఏంటి, అలాంటి సైట్స్ మీద ఫోకస్ చేయండి. సో విత్ దిస్ బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ Vedic literature. So you are quite aware of the entire literature which was produced by Aryans, broadly divided into two categories, that is Shruti literature and Smriti literature. Mali Shruti literature lo bhanga, as I was telling in the previous session, we found odd one out questions. Odd one out questions. ఏంటి odd one out questions అన్నప్పుడు 3 from Shruti category, 1 from Smriti. 3 from Smriti category, 1 from Shruti. So be good at it. In fact, literature is one of the components of culture. Culture always consists of 3 components: literature, religion, art and architecture. So culture మీద focus చేయాలి. So one of the components of culture, that is literature. మరి literature చదువుతున్నప్పుడు keep in mind how we have to focus literature, how we have to approach literature అన్నప్పుడు. So literature to be studied with 4 components. What are the 4 components అన్నప్పుడు? Can anyone? What are the 4 components to be focused while you're reading books, while you're reading literature? Children. Good. Author, name of the author, name of the book, or language, and finally content. That's it. Only 4 areas. We're not here to do PhD in literature. No. For example, to make you understand, take an example of a book that is Artha Shastra. It's the name of the book. Everyone knows, right? Who authored? Kautilya. In which language? Sanskrit. Content? Political administration. That's it. Enough. అయిపోయింది. So what I'm trying to tell you, we have to learn, we have to prepare in terms of exam. We are not here to accumulate X point, Y point, Z point. No. Start catching the pulse of UPSC. ఏ ఏరియాస్ మీద ఫోకస్ చేస్తున్నారు? At what calls our pulse? Go through previous question papers. Simple. Yes, we may not be 100% sure to catch the pulse of UPSC, but like we can go to nearer, enough. Keep in mind, while you're say, writing any test, adi mock test gaanivandi, inkoti gaanivandi, actual exam gaanivandi, you have to answer maximum questions, not all questions. Maximum questions కి ఆన్సర్ పెట్టడానికి ప్రయత్నించండి. దట్స్ ఇట్. బికాస్ ఎవ్రీవన్ నోస్ నెగిటివ్ మార్కింగ్ ఉంది. ఈవెన్ మీరు స్టోన్ వేసినా కూడా మనకే తగులుతుంది. Unless you have what we call say very sure about it, right? Keep in mind. Now with this background, come to Shruti literature. In fact, you're quite aware of what is this Shruti and what is this Smriti Annaplu. So we have four components under Shruti. The first component happened to be Vedas. How many Vedas? Four Vedas. Everyone knows that is Rig Veda, Yajur, Sama and Atharvana Veda. And be good at factual information. Take an example of Rig Veda. We have 10 chapters, right? I'm not instructing you people like, be good at entire Rig Veda. Manaku exam point of view, manaku 3 chapters are important. The third chapter called Vishwamitra. Very good. Gayatri Mantra, right? Manaku third chapter lo, which was written by Vishwamitra, it's the name of the Aryan scholar, where we found Gayatri Mantra, right? One of the sacred hymns for Hindus, right? Gayatri Mantra dedicated to which goddess? చెప్పండి. సరస్వతి, లక్ష్మీదేవి, గాయత్రి మంత్ర, గాయత్రి. చల్లగుంటలే మీరంతా. చెప్పండి. సావిత్రి. ఫ్యాక్చువల్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్. సావిత్రి, లక్ష్మీదేవి గాన్. బీ గుడ్ ఎట్. 1-2 సార్లు చదివితే వచ్చేస్తాను. అక్కడ పోయిన తర్వాత గాయత్రి మంత్రం ఈ 3 సార్లు చెప్పినాడు, కానీ దొంగముఖముడు సావిత్రి చెప్పాడు, ఏం చెప్పాడు అయిపోయాడు. టర్న్ టువర్డ్స్ ఈస్ట్ అండ్ హ్యావ్ సూర్య నమస్కారం. ఎందుకు సార్? విటమిన్ డి వరం అనమాట. రైట్, చలో. సో వీ హ్యావ్ 4 Vedas. The 4 Vedas, like Rig Veda, which is oldest Veda, everyone knows, and Rig Veda, it got translated to English language. Can anyone? Max Miller, good. Rig Veda got translated to English language. See, Rig Veda మీద ఎక్కువగా ఫోకస్ చేయండి. రీజన్ బీయింగ్, in order to understand the early Vedic Aryans between 1500 BC to 1000 BC, like the only source of our knowledge happened to be Rig Veda. మీరు అబ్జర్వ్ చేసినట్లయితే early Vedic period otherwise called as Rig Vedic period. Reason being, yes, the only source of our knowledge happened to Rig Veda. If you want to know economy of early Vedic Aryans, social conditions of early Vedic Aryans, political conditions, whatever the conditions you talk about, you have to go knock the doors of Rig Veda. That's it. So Rig Veda మీద ఎక్కువగా ఫోకస్ చేయండి. When it comes to యజుర్వేద, ఇన్ఫ్యాక్ట్ మీరు ఫోకస్ చేయాల్సినటువంటి అంశాలు ఏంటంటే కంటెంట్ ఏంటి. మనం ఇందాక లిటరేచర్లో భాగంగా రాసుకున్నాం. Four areas to be focused. So name of the book, name of the author, language and content. When it comes to Shruti literature gaanivandi, Smriti literature gaanivandi, focus must be on content, because we don't have names of the author. Unnapadiki 1 or 2 you can focus, not like all authors and all. So what is the content of Rig Veda? Annappudu deals with prayers. The content of Yajurveda annappudu, can anyone? What is the content of Yajurveda? Rig Veda deals with prayers. Yajurveda deals with rituals and sacrifices. Samaveda deals with music, how to pronounce the Vedas, and finally Atharvana Veda. Virupacha 1, Virupacha 2. Black magic, right? Chetabadi, Banamati. ఇవన్నీ నీకెడు తెలుసు సార్? జనరల్ నాలెడ్జ్ అన్నట్టు. అంటే చేతబడి చేస్తే ప్రిలిమ్స్ అవుతుందా సార్? అవుతుంది, చేసుకుంటా కూర్చుంటాడు. చలో. So right, it's all about 4 Vedas. Now come to Brahmanas. 7 Brahmanas. 7 Brahmanas. How many Vedas do we have? 4 Vedas. When it comes to Brahmanas, we have 7 Brahmanas. Once again, out of 7 Brahmanas, we have to focus on 3 Brahmanas. Take an example of, very good one, Aitare Brahmana, right? Aitareya Brahmana. Chalo, when I say Aitareya Brahmana, what is the significance of Aitareya Brahmana? What is the significance of Aitareya Brahmana? When I say significance, chala significances unnai. Like, for our convenience and exam point of view. The significance of Aitareya Brahmana, which gives the list of Deccan and South Indian tribal clans. Aitareya Brahmana gives the clans, the tribal clans which were living beyond what we call the Gangetic Basin, that is Deccan and South India. When it comes to ABPSC, TGPSC, one of the patent questions, let me tell you, Aitareya Brahmana, అంటే ఆంధ్ర అనే పదం మనకు మొట్టమొదటిసారిగా ఎక్కడి నుంచి రావడం జరిగిందంటే Aitareya Brahmana నుంచి రావడం జరిగింది. ఆంధ్రాస్, పులిందాస్, like Mutibas, Kalingas, some XYZ tribal clans were mentioned for the first time in Aitareya Brahmana. Another famous Brahmana, Shatapatha. Another famous Brahmana, out of 7 Brahmanas, Shatapatha Brahmana. Can you know what is the significance of Shatapatha Brahmana? Political institutions, Shatapatha Brahmana. Shatapatha Brahmana annappudu, Shatapatha Brahmana annappudu, we found a technical term called Kusidin. Kusidin. What is this Kusidin? Moneylenders. Vadi Vyaparastu antam Telugulo. The term called Kusudin we found for the first time in Shatapatha Brahmana. And another significance of Shatapatha Brahmana, it gives the migration of Aryans from Sapta Sindhu region to Gangetic Basin. Shatapatha Brahmana gives the episode called the migration of Aryans from northwestern India to North India. Shatapatha Brahmana says, Vaidega Raja, the Rajan, Vaidega Rajan, the gentleman along with his team, he got migrated to Gangetic Basin, that is Sadanira, modern Gandak region. Gandak is one of the tributaries of river Ganga and all. Shatapatha Brahmana gives the migration episode. Shatapatha Brahmana also talks about the economic institutions, to be specific, Kusudin. Besides Brahmanas, we have Aranyakas. How many Aranyakas do we have? 7. 4 Vedas, 7 Brahmanas, 7 Aranyakas. When it comes to Upanishads, 108. Ambulance number, that's it. Shruti literature అయిపోయింది. When it comes to Aranyakas, what's the content of Aranyakas? Chalo, look at the board. The content of Vedas annappudu, Rigveda talks about, Bhakti. Rigveda talks about prayers, not Bhakti, prayers. And Yajurveda talks about rituals and sacrifices. When it comes to Samaveda talks about music. Atharvana Veda focuses on black magic and all. Now come to Brahmanas. The content of all Brahmanas, 7 Brahmanas, you can write down this, that is rituals and sacrifices. All Brahmanas, though they give different episodes, but at the end they talk about rituals and sacrifices. పూజల గురించి, పునస్కారాల గురించి, యజ్ఞాల గురించి, యాగాల గురించి తెలిపేదే Brahmanas అంటాం. Obviously, they were written by the selfish priestly class. Brahmanas were written by selfish priestly class. Reason being, the enormous importance was given to rituals and sacrifices. When it comes to Aranyakas talk about, Aranyakas talk about, that is meditation. So when we understand the respective books in terms of religion, the Vedic, early Vedic religion kaavachu, later Vedic religion kaavachu. In fact, in later Vedic religion, everyone knows we have moksha concept, right? The absence of moksha in early Vedic period. Moksha, salvation, right? How one can get moksha annappudu, Brahmana says, what is the process prescribed by Brahmanas? Very good. Karma marga. Karma marga is nothing but 16 rituals and sacrifices to be performed. What for? If you want to get salvation. Star mark and supply. All these rituals and sacrifices to be performed with the help of Brahmins. నేను అమెజాన్లో నుంచి బుక్ ఆర్డర్ పెట్టుకుని చదువుకుంటే కుదరదు అన్నమాట. కంపల్సరీ పంతులు పిలవాలి. ఆయన మొత్తం అయిపోయిన తర్వాత మమ అంటాడు, అనాలి. అయిన తర్వాత సంభావన ఉంటుంది చెప్పాను. సంభావన ఇవ్వకపోతే బాటిల్లో వాటర్ తీసుకొని కొడతాడు అన్నట్టు. ప్రిలిమ్స్ కూడా కాదని చెప్తాడు. సార్ అంటే చెప్పాము సార్, ఓకే. సో ఆల్ ద రిచువల్స్ అండ్ సాక్రిఫైసెస్ టు బి పర్ఫార్మ్ విత్ ద హెల్ప్ ఆఫ్ Brahmins. That is the reason scholars branded these books were written by selfish priestly class. Then how about Aranyakas? Aranyakas also prescribed the path for moksha. What is the path? Annappudu, the path of meditation. Star mark can apply. Not at home. Forest. Once again, Amazon nunchi meditation mat order cheskoni కూర్చుంటే కుదరదు అన్నమాట. You have to go to forest. You have to go to the forest. What for? For meditation. And another like say area that can be focused under the tag called Aranyakas. That is Aranyakas talk about ashrama system. Ashrama system. Ashrama vyavastha. Ashrama system. Can anyone what is this ashrama system? Very good. 4 stages of an Aryan life or an individual life. Star mark can supply ఈ 4 stages which are meant to Dvijas, not for Ekajas. Who are Dvijas? Twice born people. Who are twice born people? Very good. Brahmins, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Star mark can supply the men of Brahmin caste, Kshatriya caste and Vaishya caste. The women of all castes were called as Dvijas and the men of Shudra caste were called as, the men of all castes called as Ekajas and Shudras, men of Shudras and the women of Shudras were also called as Ekajas. So what I'm trying to tell you, only Dvijas were responsible for ashrama system. We have clearly mentioned in what we call Aranyakas at the age of 7 or at the age of 8. A boy from Brahmin caste, a boy from Kshatriya caste, a boy from Vaishya caste supposed to undergo a ceremony called Upanayana. మనం ఇంగ్లీష్లో ఏమంటామంటే sacred thread ceremony. Once a boy undergoes this particular ceremony, he would be going to get the status called Dvija, twice born. How a person gets 2 births annappudu according to Aranyakas or according to Vedic religion. One is natural birth. Second one is at the age of 7 or 8. So Dvijas. And let me tell you, only Dvijas are eligible for moksha. Adi karma marga ganivandi, meditation path ganivandi. Then how about Ekajas, the bulky sections of society, women of all castes and the men of Shudra caste? They are not eligible. What I'm trying to tell you, in Vedic civilization, to be specific, later Vedic period lo manaku bhayankaramainatuvanti discriminations, dominations of priestly class over religion, domination of priestly class over the other what we call sections. People got fed up with it. It's in human nature. We always go for alternative. New gaakapothe nee samajdarki chana kafi hai. So someone has come with alternative. Jainism, someone has come with alternative. Buddhism, someone has come with alternative. Ajivika, Nyaya, Sankhya, Charvaka, it went on. Right? It's all about dominations and discriminations. So, Aranyakas, where we found ashrama system, that is, can anyone, what are the 4 ashramas? Chepran? Cheppe, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara అని చెప్పి కదా. Okay, Brahmacharya. Followed by Grihastha, followed by Vanaprastha, Abhiram Sannyasa. మనం ఇప్పుడు ఏ స్టేజ్లో ఉన్నాం? మనం కాదు సార్, నేను అని చెప్పి. ఓకే, ఇప్పుడు అవన్నీ ఎందుకు లేదు సార్, ఇలాంటి క్వశ్చన్స్ అడగరు కదా. రైట్ ఇవే చలో. సో బ్రహ్మచర్య 0 to 25 years, గృహస్థ 25 to 50, వానప్రస్థ 50 to 75 years and sannyasa 75 to 100. Now the question is, you're saying Aranyakas prescribed the path called meditation for salvation when an Aryan, an individual shall go to a forest in order to get salvation. That is like, the path called meditation. And obviously, in the fourth stage, first Brahmacharya. What is the main motto of Brahmacharya? Everyone knows that is like, knowledge. You have to gain knowledge. Second one, Grihastha. Whatever the knowledge you have gained, it must be applied. How to behave with spouse, how to behave with family members, how to behave with Facebook friends. Everything, right? ఎవరైనా మెసేజ్ చేస్తే దానికి రిప్లై ఇవ్వాలి అని చెప్పారా సార్? చెప్పే ఉంటారు. అంతేగాని మనం బ్లాక్ చేయొద్దు. నువ్వు నన్ను ఆ రోజు పిలవలేదు కదా అందుకని బ్లాక్ చేసినవన్నీ చెప్పొద్దు అన్నట్టు. సార్ ఓకే రైట్ చలో. So Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. So Aranyakas, they talk about meditational path. Let me tell you, scholars opine that Vedas and Brahmanas were written by selfish scholars. Aranyakas and Upanishads were written by broad-minded scholars. That's what my point is. Reason being, Vedas on one hand, on the other hand, Brahmanas, they talk about extreme role of priestly class. But it's not the case of Aranyakas and Upanishads. Aranyakas Upanishad says the role of Guru, the teacher, that's it, right? Just like, take some sort of suggestions from Guru and perform your own stuff, right? Aranyakas. Apply the same towards Upanishads. Right? And what's the content of Upanishads? What is the content of Upanishads? How many Upanishads do we have? 108. What is the content of Upanishads? Yes, Upanishads talk about different philosophical aspects. Right? Different philosophical aspects. In fact, today's entire Hindu religion revolves around Upanishads, not your Vedas, not your Brahmanas. But unfortunately, the selfish priestly class, the Brahmins, the custodians of Hindu religion, they started emphasizing over Vedas, they started emphasizing over Brahmanas. Reason being, they can't survive without Vedas and Brahmanas. Because Vedas and Brahmanas provide livelihood for Brahmins, not Upanishads, not Aranyakas. So, as I was telling, Brahmanas prescribe the path for salvation, that is Karma Marga. When it comes to Aranyakas, the path of meditation. Then how about Upanishads? Can anyone? The path of Bhakti or Bhakti Marga. An entire your Bhakti movement revolves around Bhakti Marga. That's it. The philosophers of 6th century BC, the broad-minded scholars of Brahmin caste of 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th centuries AD, and broad-minded people of what we call the 19th century AD, everyone were thoroughly influenced by Upanishads. But as the 6th century scholars, you were Vardhaman Mahavir, Parshvanath, Gautam Buddha, Makari Gosalaputta, Nandavacha, group of philosophers. And by the time you go to Bhakti movement, every Bhakti saint was influenced by Upanishads, not your Brahmanas, not your Vedas and all that. And even your social reformers, religious reformers, Adi Rajaram Mohan Rai ganivandi, Swami Vivekananda ganivandi, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, everyone was influenced by Upanishads. Even today, Upanishads are source of our inspiration. Reason being, broad-minded, very good, unbiased. Reason being, they emphasized our philosophies, where there was no role of the so-called mediators, priestly class, Brahmins, whatever you call them. If you have the habit of reading newspapers, a couple of years ago, Supreme Court in one judgment made it clear that you have to refer Upanishads whenever, you find some sort of ambiguities over judgments, you have to refer Upanishads. Reason being, broad-minded. Well, enti broad-minded annappudu, Upanishad says, if you want to get moksha, perform bhakti. Have bhakti. Bhakti, it's a Sanskrit term we referred, that is mysticism. You have to lay down your ego in front of God. You have to surrender yourself to the God. You have to submit yourself to the God. Self-submission antam. In fact, you might have studied Islam, it's an Arabic term, the English version. Islam is an Arabic term, the English version, self-surrenderance, self-submission. The same concept spoken by Upanishads in the form of bhakti, that's it. Whenever you talk about self-submission to God, keep in mind, no role of mediators. That's it. No role of mediators. That is the reason. Unfortunately, the selfish priestly class never hyped Upanishads or never popularized Upanishads. They popularized Brahmanas. They popularized Vedas, where they have their own command over it. You can't imagine Vedas and Brahmanas without the presence of mediator. Whatever you call it. You call religious custodian, you call Brahmin, you call priestly class, whatever you call it. So what I'm trying to tell you, Shruti literature consists of 4 major components, 4 Vedas, 7 Brahmanas, 7 Aranyakas and 108 Upanishads. And Upanishads, as I was telling, some of the key, components of Shruti literature, we found many questions. And chala easy questions, chala general knowledge questions we found, I'll be going to speak. Now come to Smriti literature. When it comes to Smriti literature, we have 4 components under Smriti literature. 4 components under Smriti literature, that is Vedangas. How many Vedangas we have? 6. Upavedas? 4. Puranas? 18. Itihasas? That's it. And let me tell you, be good at Vedic literature because this is the area where you can be squeezed. అంటే అంత PhD చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. వాట్ ఈజ్ వాట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్. టేక్ ఎన్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఆఫ్ వేదాంగాస్. ఓన్లీ వేదాంగాస్ మీద ఫోకస్ చేయండి. మిగతాది చాలా జనరల్గా ఆన్సర్ చేయొచ్చు. Vedangas, we have 6 Vedangas. We found match the following questions. On one hand, technical terms, on the other hand, English versions. We have 6 Vedangas. For example, we have Shiksha, Chandas, Jyotishya, Kalpa. We have some XYZ Vedangas. ఏంటి వేదాంగాస్ అన్నప్పుడు, వన్స్ అగైన్ కంటెంట్ ఆఫ్ వేదాంగాస్ అన్నప్పుడు ఇట్ డీల్స్ విత్ గ్రామర్ పార్ట్. దట్స్ ఇట్. వేద అంగాస్, ద లిమ్స్ ఆఫ్ ది వేదాస్. So you can't imagine Vedas without Vedangas. Vedas would be handicapped if no Vedangas. Because they help Vedas to understand, they help Vedas to pronounce and all that. So we have 6 Vedangas, and when it comes to 4 Upavedas, since we have 4 Vedas, 4 Upavedas. And when it comes to 18 Puranas, even Upavedas content also grammar. The content of Upavedas also grammar. Now come to Puranas. What's the content of Puranas?
Genealogy of kings.
Yes. Puranas, we have 18 Puranas. Ashtadasha Puranas we call in Sanskrit, right? Say, the content of Puranas, it talks about genealogical order, chronological order of dynasties, kings. X ruler, followed by Y ruler, followed by Z ruler, followed by A ruler. Dynastic, Puranas give dynastic information. At the same time, chronological. In fact, you might have studied, or take an example of, say, Shatavahana dynasty, or Balagavadina. So, Shatavahana dynasty gurinchi manaku, especially Matsya Purana. Matsya Purana says there were for about 30 rulers, ruled over Deccan for about 450 years. Matsya Purana is one of the Puranas. Matsya Purana gives the list of Shatavahana rulers, 30 rulers, ruled over Deccan and South India for about 450 years. Obviously, we generally won't read for 30 rulers and all. Hardly we read for about half a dozen rulers. అందులో బాలయ్య బాబుని కొంచెం మనం హైప్ చేస్తాం అన్నమాట. ఎందుకంటే తెలుగు భాష అండ దండ. ఓకే, when it comes to the 4th component, that is Itihasas, the 4th and last component of Smriti literature, Itihasas. But Itihasas lo bhanga, be good at, according to Hindu mythology, the entire universe broadly divided into how many ages? 4. What are they? గట్టి చెప్పండి. సత్య, త్రేత, ద్వాపర, కలియుగ. So Satya Yuga, otherwise called as Krita, followed by Treta, Ta, Avatar. According to one Purana, since Lord Vishnu took 3 incarnations in this age, the age is named after Treta Yugamura. And in fact, we have 2 itihasas, right? What were they? Ramayana and Mahabharata. So Ramayana belonged to which age? Treta Yuga. So we found questions. Right? See, unless you know the classification. Right? First, Treta Vasada, Dwapara Vasada. Done towards East Egg. ఇవన్నీ కూడా జనరల్ నాలెడ్జ్ క్వశ్చన్స్ 1-2 సార్లు మెల్లగా చదువుతూ వచ్చేస్తాను అన్నమాట. దాన్ని కనెక్ట్ చేసుకోవాలి. We have two itihasas, epics we call in English, right? So Ramayana belonged to Treta age, and everyone knows its author, its content, and its slokas. Now come to Mahabharata, belong to which age? Dwapara age. How many slokas we have in Ramayana? At the beginning, how many slokas? At the beginning, we found 12,000 slokas. At the beginning, when I said at the beginning, when Valmiki wrote Ramayana. At present, how many slokas? 24. 12,000 slokas, no. Nalantolu, Milantolu. Inga Milantolu, Gadugu Mundukesi Mottam add chesaru annamata. So 24,000 slokas. Now come to Mahabharata. At the beginning, Mahabharata consisted of how many slokas? 8,800 slokas. At present, Mahabharata consists of how many slokas? 1 lakh. Indian Constitution కంటే ఇలా ఉంటుంది అన్నట్టు. ఇండియన్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషనే ఇలా ఉండదు. అమెరికన్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ మెల్లగా జోలు పెట్టుకొని వెళ్ళిపోవచ్చు అనమాట. హార్డ్లీ 10 pages. That's it. The world's first constitution, American Constitution. So, one of the previous questions we remembered, Mahabharata, otherwise called as Shata Sahasra Samhita. Shata, 100, Sahasra, 1,000, 100 into 1,000, 1 lakh. The book which consisted of 1 lakh hymns. Shata Sahasra Samhita. Right. But it's all about Vedic literature. So one of the patent questions, not only 2024 to 2014, like manaku chaala exams lo, I'm just getting like one each and every question, like for one or two questions, right, from each and every chapter. So the national motto of India, Satyameva Jayate, inscribed below the emblem of India, is taken from. Children, what's the right answer? Option D, Mundakopanishad. So look at the board. So in which Upanishad the concept called bhakti was detailedly discussed? In which Upanishad? We have 108 Upanishads, right? So I'm not instructing you people like be good at 108 Upanishads and go to any RK Mutt Sanskrit coaching. ఇవన్నీ కాదన్నమాట. So కొన్ని Upanishads ఉన్నాయి which frequently we found in exams. Obviously we must be good at it. And bhakti, you must be very good at bhakti. అది మనకు 6th century BCలో కానివ్వండి, ఈవెన్ భక్తి మూమెంట్లో కానివ్వండి, ఈవెన్ 19th century సోషల్ రిలీజియస్ రిఫర్మేషన్ మూమెంట్స్ కానివ్వండి. కానీ anyone? చెప్పండి. What's the name of the Upanishad where we found for the first time the concept called bhakti? Shveteshvataropanishad. అక్క పేరు గుర్తుంటుంది. రైట్ ఏదో పర్ఫార్మెన్స్. Shveteshvataropanishad. Out of 108 Upanishads, an Upanishad named Shveteshvataropanishad, where the concept called bhakti was detailedly discussed. Now, another core area, that is classification of Vedic civilization. Manam indak refer chesam. It was based on the venue, based on the location. Entire civilization broadly divided into 2 categories, the 2 parts. So this 1500 BC to 600 BC, the span of Vedic civilization. For our convenience and exam point of view, scholarly convention, entire civilization broadly divided into 2 categories, that is early Vedic period 1500 BC to 1000 BC, and later Vedic period 1000 BC to 600 BC. What is the venue of early Vedic Aryans? Northwestern India or Sapta Sindhu region. Now come to venue of later Vedic Aryans. Gangetic Basin. So it was based on the venue entire civilization broadly divided into categories, that is like early Vedic period and then later Vedic period. We have also referred early Vedic period, otherwise called as Rig Vedic period. Be good at, don't get confused, early Vedic period with Vedic civilization. Especially manaku mains lo chaala mandiki early Vedic tarvata manaku Vedic civilization ku chaala mandiki difference teliyadu. Assume what is the right mains lo I'm talking about the right about the position of women in Vedic civilization. You have to write both early Vedic period and later Vedic period. And we found many times the questions explain the role of women in Rig Vedic period. You have to confine only to Rig Vedic. So అందుకనే ఈ బేసిక్ కాన్సెప్ట్స్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో వాటి మీద ఫోకస్ చేయాలి. Early Vedic period, otherwise called as Rig Vedic period. Reason being, Max Muller says, the German Indologist Max Muller says, Rig Veda was compiled between 1500 BC to 1000 BC. The same Max Muller, the German Indologist who got translated Rig Veda into English language. So when it comes to general conditions lo bhanga, so start with economy. Economy మధ్యలో రాసుకోండి. Then on one hand you can write down early Vedic, on the other hand later Vedic. చలో బ్రీఫ్గా will refer. When it comes to economy of early Vedic period, can anyone? What is the profession of early Vedic period? Chapman. Very good. Pastoral economy. Pastoral economy, the economy which revolves around two components. What were they? The economy which revolves around two components. Sir, దాన్ని పక్కన పెట్టండి. What is meant by pastoral economy? Cattle rearing economy. మళ్ళీ దాన్ని నేను చాలా పాష్గా two components అని చెప్తున్నాను. What are the two components? I repeat, pastoral economy revolves around two components. What were they annappudu? That is animals and grasslands. You can't imagine pastoral economy without these two elements, right? Animals and grasslands. Pashuposhana Arthika Vyavastha antam. Pastoral economy. Let me tell you, pastoral economy lo manaku trade and commerce అనేది చాలా తక్కువగా ఉంటుంది. And I would say the absence of trade and commerce. మనం లాస్ట్ క్లాసెస్ రెఫర్ చేసినొచ్చు how the institutions to be referred. For example, Indus Valley Civilization lo whenever you read society to be focused on two components. What were they? Social classification, position of women, and economy to be focused with three components. What were they? Agriculture, followed by industries, followed by trade and commerce. మీరు ఏ చాప్టర్స్ ఏదైనా keep in mind. You just add XYZ points. Thereby there shouldn't be any kind of confusion. ఒక ఆర్గనైజ్డ్ వేలో చదవడం నేర్చుకోండి. ఫస్ట్ సొసైటీ చదివి ఒక కాంపనెంట్ చదివి మరి దేశం నాకు ఇంట్రెస్ట్ రావట్లేదు మన ఎకానమీ పోయి మొత్తం ఆగమాగం అవుతుంది. ఫస్ట్ సొసైటీ, ఓకే సొసైటీలో ఈ కాంపనెంట్స్ ఉన్నాయి, టెక్నికల్ టర్మ్స్ ఏమన్నాయి ఉంటాయి, దాన్ని హైలైట్ చేసుకోండి, ఒకటి రెండు సార్లు చదవండి. గో టు ఎకానమీ, గో టు కల్చర్, అండ్ ఇఫ్ పాసిబుల్ హ్యావ్ ద హ్యాబిట్ ఆఫ్ కంపేరింగ్. For example, you're reading Vedic economy or Vedic, when I say Vedic, both early Vedic and later Vedic, and have the habit of going back to Indus Valley Civilization, how their economy was. దీన్ని మనం కంపారిజన్ చేసినప్పుడు ఏమవుతుందంటే when you involve in comparison studies, what happens, you can easily answer even the questions are very tricky. We found questions on comparisons. Once again, go through previous question papers. Even we are going to learn in this session, that is comparative question we found, right? So agriculture, industries and trade and commerce annappudu, then you can pose me the question, but instead of discussing agriculture, industries and trade and commerce, directly went to pastoral. Now మన దగ్గర ఏదైతే ప్రొఫార్మా ఉందో అగ్రికల్చర్, ఇండస్ట్రీస్ అండ్ ట్రేడ్ అండ్ కామర్స్, ఈ ప్రొఫార్మాకు ఎర్లీ వేదిక్ పీరియడ్ సరిపోదన్నమాట. రీజన్ బీయింగ్ ద ఎకానమీ ఆఫ్ ఎర్లీ వేదిక్ ఆరియన్స్ వాజ్ pastoral. Besides pastoral economy, we found some XYZ industries. And once again, enti aa industries annappudu, you have to book it, that is Sanskrit terms. You have to refer Rig Veda. For example, Kulala, potter; Tashkan, carpenter; Napita, barber; Javed Habib. ఇవన్నీ అనమాట. ఏదోటి మనకు కొండగుర్తో బండగుర్తో ఏదోటి మెల్ల గుర్తు పెట్టుకోవాలి. సంస్కృత్ టర్మ్స్ మనకు మన టర్మే గుర్తుండవు, సంస్కృత్ టర్మ్స్ ఏం గుర్తుండవు. సో వాటికి ఒకటి రెండు సార్లు మనకు వచ్చిన మెల్లగా రాసుకోండి, గుర్తుంటుంది. బికాస్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు ఫోకస్ ఆన్ 3 components, టెక్నికల్ టర్మ్స్, ప్రాకృత్, పాలి అండ్ సంస్కృత్. వేర్ ఇన్ ఏన్షియంట్, బై ద టైమ్ యూ గో టు మెడివల్, అరబిక్ అండ్ పర్షియన్. మొత్తానికైతే పాలిగ్లాట్ చేస్తున్నాం సార్. ఎస్, వీఆర్ ఆల్ పాలిగ్లాట్. మనకు తెలియని విషయం ఏంటంటే మనం పాలిగ్లాట్ అని. పూర్ గంగా, షీ డజంట్ నో చంద్రముఖి కమ్స్ అండ్ గోస్, బట్ కమ్స్ అండ్ గోస్. సో యూ హ్యావ్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్ while you're reading, right? While you're writing. Don't by heart. I repeat, don't by heart the technical terms. ఎక్కడో దగ్గర మనం విని ఉంటాం. సో బై హార్ట్ చేయదు. బై హార్ట్ చేయడంలో ఏమవుతుందంటే అప్పటికప్పుడు గుర్తుంటుంది, బట్ వెన్ యూ సిట్ ఇన్ ఎగ్జామ్, నారాయణ ఏముంది, నెక్స్ట్ ఇయర్ మళ్ళీ వస్తాను అనమాట, అప్పుడు చైతన్య అవుతుంది ఇక. చలో, సో మనకు pastoral economy, and everyone knows pastoral economy. Let us not spend much time, followed by industries. Let me tell you, very less trade and commerce are the absence of trade and commerce. Why the absence of trade and commerce in pastoral economy? Any wild guess? What was the reason? That's an answer, right? When we think of trade and commerce, when we think of trade and commerce, that's it. When we think of trade and commerce అన్నప్పుడు, when we have excessive production, ఇక్కడ ఎక్సెసివ్ లేదు, లోట పేజ్ లేదు. నా ముఖాన పాలు కొట్టి నీ ముఖాన్ని ఛాయ్ కొడతా, ఈ బ్యాచ్ అన్నట్టు ఇదంతా. pastoral economy revolves around dairy products, milk, curd, ఈ బ్యాచ్ అన్నట్టు. సో నో సర్ప్లస్, నో ట్రేడ్ అండ్ కామర్స్, అయిపోయింది. నౌ గో టు లేటర్ వేదిక్ పీరియడ్. When it comes to economy of later Vedic period, the economy of later Vedic period, can anyone? Agriculture. Now we found many questions on later Vedic economy. Right? So let me pose the question: what factors forced later Vedic Aryans to abandon pastoral economy? Right? And why did they go for agrarian economy? Right? Migrated towards Gangetic Basin. Yes. Water resources ఉన్నాయి. Or కొంచెం గట్టి చెప్పండి. Very good. Discovery of iron. Good. One of the reasons, very good. One of the reasons why later Vedic Aryans went to agriculture by abandoning pastoral economy of early Vedic period annappudu, the first and foremost reason, that is iron. The discovery of iron. And in later Vedic text, adi Brahmanas ganivandi, Aranyakas ganivandi, Upanishads ganivandi, we found 2 technical terms, 2 Sanskrit terms to iron. Can anyone, what are the 2 terms we found in later Vedic texts which denotes iron? Look at the board. Manaku Rig Vedic period lo bhanga we found Ias. Ias, it does not, Ias denote metal, not iron. This is important, right? Ias is nothing but metal, but not iron. Then what kind of metal? Maybe bronze, maybe copper, maybe silver, maybe gold, whatever it. Ias. Then how about iron annappudu? In later Vedic texts, we found iron, the technical terms for iron. Can anyone? Very good. Shama Ias. And Krishna Ias. Guarantee color. Iron. What is the color of iron? Black. See, the concept is important. Performance kaadu. Shama Ias, Krishna Ias denote iron. And one of the reasons why later Vedic Aryans or Gangetic Aryans went to agriculture annappudu, that is discovery of iron. One of our friends, he says, and another reason, that is the fresh lands, the virgin lands. No people exploited Gangetic Basin. Neither your Indus people nor your prehistoric people. The Neolithic, Paleolithic, whatever you talk about, no one has touched the virgin lands or Gangetic lands, very fresh lands, fertile lands you call them. So these two factors forced later Vedic Aryans to abandon pastoral economy and to go to agriculture. Ikkada, so early Vedic period lo simple economy antam. Then how about later Vedic period? Later Vedic economy, prosperous economy. The later Vedic Aryans were simmering in the sea of wealth. Now, thanks to the prosperous economy, which we found discriminations in other sectors, to be specific, social sector, to be specific, religious sectors, and better now to talk about political sector. Because when we understand the summary of early Vedic period, 1500 BC, concept artham cheskoli, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, economy, simple economy. Very simple economy. తిన్నామా పడుకున్నామా తెల్లారిందా అయిపోయింది. సింపుల్ ఎకానమీ. Now go to society. Equal principles, egalitarian principles. No domination of X class over Y class. No domination of X gender over Y gender. Now go to religion. Simple religion. You are interested in some X god? Fantastic, go and worship. Go and have prayers. No discriminations. No moksha concept. No rituals and sacrifices. No domination of priestly class. Then you talk about polity. That's it. Simple polity. Rajan was benevolent like me. Okay. Very benevolent. Mali Patyaparam ekkada start ayindi sir? Ikkada start ayindi. Reason being? Paisalu. Prosperous economy. It's a human nature. మన దగ్గర పైసలు ఉంటే వేరే వాడిని నొకింగ్. It's a new human nature, unfortunately. When we have money, the very first instance, we tend to get respect. Once we get respect, we tend to dominate others. That's what Aristotle says. Based on your economic status, you'll be given social status. ఏ ముహూర్తాన చెప్పాడు గంగమ్మకుడు, క్రీస్తుపురం చెప్పాడు, ఇప్పుడు కూడా చల్తూనే ఉందన్నమాట. ఐ జనరలీ గివ్ అవుట్డేటెడ్ జోక్. డబ్బు ఉంటే సుబ్బిగాడిని సుబ్బారావు గారు అంటారు. డబ్బు లేకపోతే సుబ్బారావు గారిని రే సుబ్బిగారిని ఇక్కడ కూర్చోండి. ఒక ప్రెసిడెంట్, పార్టీ ప్రెసిడెంట్, ఎమ్మెల్యే గెలిస్తే గారు అని వస్తుంది అన్నమాట. లేకపోతే ఆడ వేరే వేరే సమస్యకి చాలా కాఫీ ఏంటి అన్నప్పుడు ప్రాస్పరిటీ. అది పవర్ కానివ్వండి, ఎకానమీ కానివ్వండి, అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి. When I say very fantastic, flawless institutions in early Vedic period, why all these institutions got corrupted? The credit goes to economy. When it comes to society, right? Well, society lo bhanga, it was class-based society, right? Early Vedic society, class-based society, right? We have three classes or three professions: Brahmanas, Rajanyas and Vis. Profession based, occupational based. What is the profession of Brahmanas? Teachers, Rajanyas, protectors, Vis, and other professions. Professions, not caste. For our convenience, we also use the term called class. Right? It was a class based society. As I was telling, like in the previous session, whenever you study society to be studied with two components, right? The first one, classification. Second one, position of women, right? Well, classification, what was the criteria based on which early Vedic society got classified? And up to it was class based or profession based or occupation based. There are three occupations, three major professions. Okay. Now come to position of women. It was patriarchal society. Right? Patriarchal society. Right? Though it was a patriarchal society, women were given respectable position. That's the greatness of men. Okay. So though it was a patriarchal society, women were given respectable position. Then you can pose me the question, as you said, Indus Valley Civilization. What is Indus Valley society? Matriarchal. Star one can supply. Sir John Marshall. ఆయన మాత్రమే చెప్తాడు. మ్యాట్రియార్కల్ అన్నా కూడా మెల్లగా ఆయన తీసుకురావాలి. నేను చెప్పలేదు, సార్ చెప్పాడని చెప్పాడు, అయిపోయిందండి. మ్యాట్రియార్కల్ సొసైటీ. కానీ ఇక్కడ ప్యాట్రియార్కల్. ఇన్ఫ్యాక్ట్ everyone knows patriarchal society is nothing but women would be given socially subordinate position. Let me tell you, అంటే women would be given socially subordinate position అన్నప్పుడు దీన్ని డిస్క్రిమినేషన్గా పరిగణించకూడదు. కీప్ ఇన్ మైండ్. I repeat, whenever you talk about patriarchal society, women be given socially subordinate position. మ్యాట్రియార్కల్ సొసైటీలో వీళ్ళని కింద పెడతారు. ఇక ఒక కూర్చొని చెప్తారు. ఏడా సార్? మ్యాట్రియార్కల్ సొసైటీలో. దట్ ఈస్ నాట్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్. బియాండ్ పొజిషన్, ఇఫ్ యూ ట్రీట్ యువర్ విమెన్, దెన్ యూ టాక్ అబౌట్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్. కొంతమంది జనరల్గా ప్యాట్రియార్కల్ సొసైటీస్ నథింగ్ బట్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ లేదు, అంత పెద్ద పెద్ద పదాలు యూజ్ చేయకండి. ఇట్స్ ప్యాట్రియార్కల్ సొసైటీ వేర్ లైక్ విమెన్ వుడ్ బి గివెన్ subordinate position. Matriarchy, men would be given subordinate position. Do we have matriarchal societies today? What were they? ఏదో ఓ ట్రెండ్ చెప్పండి నా ఆత్మ సంతృప్తి కోసం చెప్పండి. ట్రైబల్ సొసైటీస్. ఇంకా మనకు ఆర్గనైజ్డ్ సొసైటీస్లో ఏమైనా ఉన్నా? కేరళ చెప్పండి. కేరళ స్టోరీ, కేరళ ఫైల్ అని చెప్పాడు. Yes, Nayar society in Kerala, even today, matriarchal. Only outgoing, not సమన్సానికి ఇషారా కాఫీరే. ఓకే, నువ్వేం చెప్తున్నావు మాకు తెలుసులేదు సార్. తెలిసి కూడా రియాక్ట్ కాకపోవడం ఒక ఆర్ట్ అన్నట్టు, కళాకారులు అన్నట్టు వీళ్ళందరూ. చలో, సో patriarchal society, say class-based society, patriarchal society, though patriarchal society women were given respectful position, then you have to focus in what way. See, it's all about evidences, right? Either just like, we belong to one gender and to pacify another gender, laping, no. What grounds? Right? What grounds annappudu is women were given education. And it is not exaggerated to say, many women scholars we found in Rig Veda, they even composed many hymns, educational. And many women who participated in Sabha and Samiti deliberations. So in a nutshell, they were given good position, respectful position. No discriminations, no child marriages, no sati, no taboo or video. ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఏం లేవు ఎక్కడ ఎర్లీ వేదిక్ పీరియడ్లో. రీజన్ బీయింగ్ సింపుల్ ఎకానమీ. అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి. యూపీఎస్సీ ఫోకసెస్ ఆన్ సోషియో ఎకానమిక్ అండ్ కల్చరల్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్, సోషల్ హిస్టరీ, ఎకానమిక్ హిస్టరీ అండ్ కల్చరల్ హిస్టరీ. Now come to later Vedic period, same two components, that is caste system. Now position of women, socially subordinate position. Caste, class-based society, caste-based society. Well, caste-based societies lo manaku we have Brahmin caste, everyone knows, Kshatriya caste, followed by Vaishya caste and Shudra caste. So Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. So professional based, caste based. Now come to position of women. It was patriarchal society, no doubt about it. It was a patriarchal society, but women were given many inhuman institutions, abusive institutions. One among them was killing the girl child. One of the inhuman institutions born and brought up in later Vedic period, to be specific, 1000 BC to 600 BC. Today, whatever, say, abuses we generally talk, corrupt institutions we generally talk, all corrupt institutions, all dominant, discriminative institutions born and brought up in later Vedic period. killing the girl child, followed by child marriages, followed by sati, followed by taboo over widow remarriages, followed by polygamy, whatnot. It went on. And the same institutions we found by the time you go to Guptans. ఇంకా కొన్ని ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్ యాడ్ చేయడం జరిగింది. One among them was Devadasi system. A little later, the few institutions added, it went on. ఏంటి అన్నప్పుడు the credit goes to economy, the dominant economy. మీరు అబ్జర్వ్ చేసినట్లయితే బ్రాహ్మణాస్, రాజన్యాస్, విస్. బ్రాహ్మణాస్ బ్రాహ్మిన్ క్యాస్ట్, అబ్జర్వ్ చేయాలి. Rajanyas, Kshatriya caste. Now the actual story starts Vis. Mal Vislo bhanga, other professions and raskunam. How the other professions got classified into two major professions annaplu, very simple. When I say Vis, other professions, in Vis, the professions which are associated with high remuneration, the professions which are associated with the clean professions, they were given the tag called వైశ్యాస్. అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి, ఈ క్లాసిఫికేషన్ మొత్తం ఇట్ వాస్ డన్ బై ద సెల్ఫిష్ పీపుల్. మళ్ళీ క్వశ్చన్ రాకూడదన్న ఉద్దేశంతో మేము చేసినామా, గో అండ్ ఆస్క్ బ్రహ్మ అని చెప్పాను. ఈడు వెళ్ళాడు, ఆయన చెప్పాడు, అయిపోయింది. దట్స్ ద అరోమా ఆఫ్ రిలీజియస్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్. యూ క్రియేట్ ద సిస్టమ్, యాడ్ రిలీజియస్ కలర్, ద సిస్టమ్ బికమ్ సేక్రెడ్. And sacred is an institution which is above question mark. Forget about criticism. Same, all these institutions, right? All these institutions were created by selfish people. You call selfish men, you call selfish priestly class, whatever. Everywhere you come across. Since we are referring Vedas here, our Vedic civilization, everywhere. Even you go to Islam, even you go to Christianity, whatever religion you talk about, everywhere you come across. ఏంటి అన్నప్పుడు డామినేషన్. సో వాట్ ఐమ్ ట్రైయింగ్ టు టెల్ యూ, ద విస్, ద ప్రొఫెషన్స్ విచ్ ఆర్ అసోసియేటెడ్ విత్ హై రెమ్యునరేషన్, క్లీన్, దే వర్ గివెన్ ద ట్యాగ్ కాల్డ్ వైశ్యాస్. Those professions which are associated with low remuneration, uncleaned, they were given the tag called, మనం ఇందాక రెఫర్ చేసాం అరిస్టాటిల్, based on your economic status you'll be given social status. And you might have studied as part of modern Indian history, from Shudras we found many subcastes. ఏంటి క్రైటీరియా ఏంటి? సేమ్ క్రైటీరియా. Those professions which are associated with Shudra caste, which are high remuneration, cleaned, for a period of time they have got high social status. And today we call them very dominant castes. And one of the dominant castes in Telugu speaking states, everyone knows, Reddys. Reddys basically Shudra caste. I'm just giving one. We have so many, right? You might have studied as part of anti-Brahmanical movements, right? Kula Vetreka Udyamalu antam. Anti-Brahmanical movements and anti-caste movements. Anti-Brahmanical movements organized by two, the Western educated Dalit intellectuals, the Western educated intermediary castes, మధ్యస్థాయి కులాలు అంటాం. ఏ లేట్ నుంచి వచ్చాడు సార్, ఈ బ్యాచ్ అన్నట్టు. And you might have heard of one of the famous sociologists by name M.N. Srinivas. M.N. Srinivas was responsible for this classification. How these these people have come from Shudra caste and gradually attained the status called high caste. Very good. Sanskritization. Samskutikarana antam. Though you belong to low caste, since you are economically well off, you started imitating the lifestyle of upper castes. Over a period of time, you'll be going to get the status called upper caste. Fine. So when it comes to early Vedic society, it was simple society, no discriminations. Now come to later Vedic society, all complexities we found in later Vedic society. When it comes to polity, early Vedic polity, Rajan was benevolent. Early Vedic polity, Rajan was benevolent. And to assist him, we found that is Sabha, Samiti, Gana and Vidhatar. Sabha, Samiti, Gana and Vidhatar. All these democratic institutions. And what were the duties of early Vedic Rajan? Very good. When it comes to the functions of early Vedic Rajan, the first and foremost function to protect Praja and Pashu. That's it. The duties, the cardinal duties, the functions of Rajan to protect Praja and Pashu. ఏంటి to protect Praja and Pashu అన్నప్పుడు, so take an example of Praja, the tribal polity which has got so many defects, right? In fact, tribals, one of the defects of tribals, they always go for conflicts. Advantages ఉన్నాయి, disadvantages ఉన్నాయి. మరి డిసడ్వాంటేజెస్లో భాగంగా దే ఆల్వేస్ గో ఫర్ కాన్ఫ్లిక్ట్స్, బ్యాటిల్స్. సార్ నా పెన్ను తీసుకున్నాడు, ఏం చేస్తున్నావు? యుద్ధం చేయమని చెప్తున్నాడు. పెన్ను తీసుకుంటే యుద్ధం చేయడమే సార్, అట్టనే ఉంటుంది, తీసుకొని చెప్పు. And we have so many movies. The recently Salar, Shauranga Parva, Vara. Koncha wait jen vara. So whenever you talk about conflicts, battles, keep in mind the disappearance of people or soldiers. That's the aroma of battle. War is a violent teacher which consumes everyone and everything. In fact, war or battles, they follow equality. Idu manakula podu. First ane తీసుకొని చెప్తారు అన్నమాట. Wars, battles never follow discrimination. Idu takka kulamodu ani కూడా తీసుకొని చెప్తారు. Equality before law. So what I'm trying to tell you, in order to protect the people, so Rajan had to fight against enemies. Then how about Pashu? Pastoral economy. Whatever element which plays crucial role in economy, keep in mind that element would become source of conflict. That's it. In early Vedic period, we found battles for Pashu, for grassland. Because you can't imagine early Vedic economy without animals and pastures, grasslands. Gaddi bhumlo antam telugulo. Now by the time you go to later Vedic period, what is the source of conflicts? Lands, agricultural lands. Star mark can supply fertile lands. Whenever you talk about economy, keep in mind all battles, all wars fought for fertile lands. దాన్ని మనం చాలా పాష్గా జియోపొలిటికల్ కాన్ఫ్లిక్ట్స్ అంటాం. Geopolitical conflicts. Political conflicts for the sake of fertile lands. You might have studied as part of the post-Guptan age, Badami Chalukyans. Post-Guptan, Deccan was ruled by Badami Chalukyans. South India was ruled by Pallavas. They fought constantly. What for? KG Basin. KG Basin is nothing but fertile lands. What was the outcome? Both the dynasties got disappeared. That's the greatness of what? Very sorry. Badami Chalukyan dynasty was replaced by Rashtrakutas. Pallava dynasty was replaced by Tanjavur Cholas. 11 తక్కువ తిన్నారా? తీనరా బండ్లు అని చెప్పారు. 2 బండ్లు పోయినాయి అన్నట్టు. That's the aroma of war. అది ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ కానివ్వండి, సెకండ్ వరల్డ్ వార్ కానివ్వండి, రష్యా వర్సెస్ ఉక్రెయిన్ కానివ్వండి. బెటర్ నాట్ టు టాక్ అబౌట్ ఫలస్తీన్. That's the greatness of war. War is a violent teacher which consumes everyone and everything. All battles, all wars fought for economies. Whether you talk about pastoral economy or you talk about agrarian economy, in some economies which are related to industries, industrial economies, right? Especially when you go to European societies and all that. Battles fought for, wars fought for lands or economic institutions. So manaku early Vedic period lo Rajan was benevolent and he used to take suggestions from democratic institutions, and these are the functions, and even he used to involve in prayers and all, right? Now with this background come to later Vedic Rajan, right? Later Vedic Rajan lo bhanga, when it comes to later Vedic Rajan, Later Vedic Rajan was monarch, autocrat. Obviously the credit goes to economy. The prosperous economy forced later Vedic Rajan to become monarch. Though we found democratic institutions, though we found democratic institutions like the Sabha, Samiti, but later Vedic Rajan did not what we call take suggestions from them. Sir, Sabha and Samiti, what are you keeping aside in Japan? Because autocrat. I'm not talking about the absence of Sabha and Samiti in later Vedic period, though we found Sabha and Samiti, but Rajan never what we call inclined to take suggestions from Sabha and Samiti. And compared with early Vedic period, later Vedic period, the functions, the duties of later Vedic period, the later Vedic Rajan were much enlarged. Besides expanding the territories, agricultural lands, he also got involved in tax collection. Right? What are the earliest taxes collected by Aryans? Children? Bali and Bhaga. Bhaga, share. Bhaga is a Sanskrit term, English version. Land revenue or share. Bali, it's a professional tax or income tax. Right? Voluntary as in where? In early Vedic period. Now come to later Vedic period. Obligatory. Compulsory. Right? So early Vedic Rajan, later Vedic Rajan, though they collected taxes, we have to understand the nature of the taxes. Early Vedic Rajan did not force the people to pay taxes, volunteer offerings. When it comes to later Vedic Rajan, forced the people to pay taxes. And from the days of later Vedic period, we found political titles. One of the areas we have to focus, titles. Rajan started taking titles. Virat, Samrat, Bhoja, XYZ titles. Right? Titles ikkada teeskonam jarigindi. It was not the case of early Vedic period. And it was later Vedic Rajan, started performing various rituals and sacrifices. One among them was Ashwamedha Yaga, one among them was Vajapeya Yaga, one among them was Rajasuya Yaga, and others. What's the English version of Ashwamedha Yaga? Policy of conquest. I'm not asking makik. The English version of Ashwamedha Yaga expansion. Policy of conquest. Yuddhala dwara rajya vistarana antaru. Policy of expansion or policy of imperialism. Besides Ashwamedha Yaga, the later Vedic Rajan, with the help of Brahmins or with the help of the priests, he used to perform Vajapeya Yaga, at the same time Rajasuya Yaga. So rituals and sacrifices went to the celestial heights in later Vedic period, that is 1000 BC to 600 BC. Now when it comes to religious conditions, so general brief manam religious conditions artham cheskunnappudu, so early Vedic Aryans followed nature. The early Vedic Aryans followed the nature. So you call them natural worshippers. And we also found a term in early Vedic period, Rig Vedic period, or in Rig Veda, a term called Pancha Bhutas. Pancha Bhutas is a Sanskrit term, the 5 natural elements. So they were natural worshippers. So the early Vedic Aryans got involved in prayers, and they, we found in Rig Veda for about 33 gods and goddesses. In Rig Veda, we found 33 gods and goddesses. And early Vedic Aryans used to offer to their gods and goddesses, some sort of offerings. Even today, we involve in offerings, right? Malakada offerings enti annappudu Soma, Sura, Yava, and other offerings. So, alla peru cheppi manam Samasarki Shana Kafir. So, offerings antam. Now the question is, what exactly early Vedic Aryans prayed for? What exactly the religion revolved annappudu? They prayed for materials. Artham chesukondi. Because early Vedic period, it's a material culture. No philosophies, no spirituality, no moksha, no rituals and sacrifices. Reason being, simple economy. Outcome, simple social institutions. Outcome, simple religious institutions. They prayed for material. ఏంటి material అన్నప్పుడు they prayed for praja and pashu. అబ్జర్వ్ చేయాలి, అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి. ఈవెన్ రాజన్, the main duty of rajan happened to be to protect praja and pashu. The early Vedic Aryans, they prayed for praja and pashu. God, Indra, Somapa, give us more people so that we can get command over other tribals. God, Indra, Somapa, give us more animals. No, why did they pray for Praja and Pashu annappudu? Because Praja, as we nakamnam refer chesham, tribal polity, defense, they always go for war and say reducing the population. And when you have population, you can get command over other tribes. Now come to Pashu, that is animals, and their economy was pastoral. అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి, అబ్జర్వ్ చేయాలి. When we don't have, we crave for. ఆల్రెడీ మన దగ్గర 2-wheeler ఉంది. We generally go for 4-wheeler. సార్ నీకు దండం పెడితే 4-wheeler సార్, అంతేగాని సైకిల్ సార్ అని అడగమన్నమాట. హ్యూమన్ నేచర్ ఇవన్నీ కూడా చాలా జనరల్గా అర్థం చేసుకోవడం ప్రయత్నించాలి. నాట్ వాట్ ఈస్ దేర్ ఇన్ టెక్స్ట్ బుక్ టు బి మగబ్, రెడ్యూస్డ్ అండ్ ఆల్ రైట్. Now come to later Vedic period. All sorts of philosophies, complex rituals and sacrifices we found. The best example, moksha. Later Vedic religion, 1000 BC to 600 BC, moksha concept అంటాం. మనం ఇందాక రెఫర్ చేసాం లిటరేచర్లో భాగంగా. Now we found Vedas, we found Brahmanas, we found Aranyakas and Upanishads. Vedas and Brahmanas. In fact, Vedas says yajnas, some sort of offerings. Then how about Brahmanas, rituals and sacrifices? How about Aranyakas, meditation? When it comes to Upanishads, bhakti. Now keeping aside Vedas, keeping aside Upanishads and what we call Aranyakas, we found the much importance was given to Brahmanas by obviously selfish priestly class. History taught us, when you dominate others, when you discriminate others, if not today, over a period of time, definitely రావడం కాస్త లేట్గా వచ్చాం కానీ రావడం మాత్రం పక్క. కోడితే కుమస్తలమే. డిప్యూటీ ఏం సార్? కలెక్టర్ సార్, ఇది యూపీఎస్సీ. ఓకే, కలెక్టర్. Discrimination, domination. Throughout history we found this. Forget about 6th century BC. Take an example of Indian national movement. Take an example of French Revolution, Russian Revolution, Telangana movement. ఏంటి? Domination, discrimination. Right. If not today, over a period of time, that's what. So between 1000 BC to 600 BC, you can't imagine a religion without the rule of priestly class, Brahmins. Outcome, people got fed up with it. ఎట్టయితది తీద్దామని చెప్పారనమాట, తీశారు. మళ్ళీ ఇల్లేట్ పోయినాడు సార్, దాదాపు 400 సంవత్సరాలు, 600 BC to 200 BC, for about 400 years, their business got shut down because of COVID-19. 400 years. It was in 200 BC, once again మెల్లగా ప్యాంట్లు షర్ట్ సర్దుకొని ఇట్టనే పోతే మనకు ఉన్నది పోద్ది, ఉంచుకునేది పోద్ది. సో విల్ హ్యావ్ సమ్ సార్ట్ ఆఫ్ రిఫార్మ్స్. It was in 6th century BC, Jainism, Buddhism and other religions became alternative. In 8th century AD, Islam became alternative. In 16th century AD, Christianity became alternative. నువ్వు చక్కగుంటే అక్కడికి ఎందుకు వెళ్తారు? సమజార్కి షరా కాఫీ హేర్, అదేదో చేయమంటే సమజార్కి షరా కాఫీ హేర్. అగో నువ్వు అదేదో హిందీ డైలాగ్ చెప్తావు సార్, మాకు అర్థం కాదు. రైట్, అర్థమవుతుంది. రైట్, చలో. సో వాట్ ఐమ్ ట్రైంగ్ టు టెల్ యూ, మోక్ష బికేమ్ ఎక్స్పెన్సివ్. వై మోక్ష బికేమ్ ఎక్స్పెన్సివ్? Because you have to pay fee, taxes అనకూడదు, FNL. ఫీ అంటే కూడా ఇబ్బందిగా ఉంది సార్. సంభావన, సంభావన. క్యాష్ లేదు, స్కానర్ ఓపెన్ చేస్తాడు, కొట్టు. Rituals and sacrifices became expensive, right? What kind of rituals? Expensive rituals. What kind of rituals? Elaborate rituals. Elaborate rituals. At the same time, extensive rituals. 16 types of rituals, right from mother's womb to the tomb. 16 rituals and sacrifices to be performed. Sir, perform చేద్దాం సార్, పైసలు ఉన్నాయి, okay, fantastic. Then how about the other batch, the bulky sections of society who are not in a position to afford them? Besides, and the other bulky sections of society who are not at all eligible for. వాళ్ళని మనం ఏమన్నాము? ఏకాజాస్ అన్నాము. The women of all caste, Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, and the men of Shudra caste, all these people were called as Ekajas. Don't you think this is discrimination? Yes. Don't you think this is domination of priestly class? Yes. Discrimination, domination, then you have to pay for. That's what history taught us. Cut cheste, in 6th century BC, we found new religions. That is, everyone knows that is like, Jainism, Buddhism and other religions. So the religion of early Vedic Aryans was primarily of option A, Bhakti, option B, image worship and yajnas, option C, worship of nature and yajnas, and option D, worship of nature and Bhakti. What's the right answer? What's the question on? ఇప్పుడు చెప్పండి. సో ఆప్షన్ ఏ భక్తి. సో భక్తి మనకు ఎక్కడొచ్చింది? ఒక ఉపనిషత్స్ ఎక్కడొచ్చాయి మనకు? లేటర్ వేదిక్ పీరియడ్ వచ్చాయి. అర్లీ వేదిక్ అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి. అర్లీ వేదిక్ పీరియడ్ అదర్వైజ్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ రిగ్వేదిక్ పీరియడ్. వాట్ ఐమ్ ట్రైయింగ్ టు టెల్ యూ, రిగ్వేద బిలాంగ్డ్ టు early Vedic period, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, according to German Indologist Max Muller. Early Vedic period. Now come to later Vedic period, that is Yajur, Sama, Atharvana, followed by Brahmanas, followed by Aranyakas and Upanishads. ఇవన్నీ కూడా మనకు లేటర్ వేదిక్ పీరియడ్ కు సంబంధించిన టెక్స్ట్స్. Only one text related to early Vedic period, that is Rigveda. Now with this background you can answer it. Chapman. No second thought, option C is the right answer. Worship of nature and yajnas. When I say yajnas, not rituals and sacrifices. Yajnas are nothing but like some sort of offerings. Manam indak refer chesam. What kind of offerings? Yava, wheat and barley. Sorry, Mari. Soma, ఇది గుర్తుంటుంది. సోమాసుర అంటే అమృతం కదా సార్. ఓకే, అమృతం. With reference to the difference between the culture of Rigvedic Aryans and Indus people, comparison. With the reference to the difference between the culture of Rigvedic Aryans and Indus people, which of the following statements are correct or true? CSP 2017. Option 1, statement 1. Rigvedic Aryans used the coat of mail and helmet in warfare, whereas the people of Indus Valley Civilization did not leave any evidence of using them. Is it correct? Yes, sir. Is it correct? Chalo. Second statement. Rigvedic Aryans knew gold, silver and copper, whereas Indus Valley people knew only copper and iron. Is it correct? No, sir. Iron అంటే నేను ఫస్ట్ పక్కకెళ్ళి ఆడుకోమని చెప్పాలన్నమాట. The third one. Rigvedic Aryans had domesticated the horse, whereas there is no evidence of Indus Valley people having been aware of this animal. That's it. అంటే ఒక క్వశ్చన్, ఒక స్టేట్మెంట్ మీరు చదువుతున్నప్పుడు ఈ కాన్సెప్ట్ అనేది బఫర్ అవుతుండాలి అన్నమాట, తిరుగుతూనే ఉండాలి. దీన్నే మనము మల్టీఫేసెటెడ్ అప్రోచ్ అంటాం. See, in order to answer this question, you must have the knowledge of Indus people in Indus Valley and Vedic civilization. So with this, we'll have a pause of 5 to 10 minutes and we'll start pre-Mauryan age. Another chapter. We'll have a pause. We'll start after the break.